Thank you, Mutu, for the invite, and to Geoawesomeness as well for having me today. So my name is Stefano Savi. As mentioned, I'm the director of the Global Platform for Sustainable Natural Rubber. GPSNR is a multi-stakeholder initiative that was set up about 4 years ago. We have representation from all players in the natural rubber value chain, from the smallholders to the end users, including the processors and traders and the manufacturers of natural rubber and natural rubber products. We also have civil society organization as part of the stakeholders that are included in the GPSNR governance. Overall, GPSNR has now more than 200, almost 250 members now that are representing about 55% of the global natural rubber volume. And we work by ensuring the members set commitments that are aligned with our policy framework, which is a multi-stakeholder agreed commitment document on what sustainable natural rubber actually means, what's the definition of that based on the opinion and thoughts of our members. Yeah, and we also have programs for social, economic, and environmental actions that are linked to especially capacity building, but also assurance for what the companies are doing that we're currently initiating and developing. So when it comes to the EUDR, this is something that is certainly very important for the industry, and that will be, we think, a game changer in the way that companies are looking at compliance, yeah, when we talk about sustainability in the natural rubber value chain. What we know as of today of this EUDR, the European Union Deforestation Regulation, is that natural rubber will now be included. This is the outcome of the negotiation that led to the latest draft, and that the timeline is pretty short. So when we speak today, we're probably now at 16 months actually from the entry into force of the regulation. There's an important information about the cutoff date for deforestation, which is the 31st of December 2020 in the current draft, and this is quite aligned, I would say, with what GPSNR had set up already 4 years ago by deciding on a cutoff date of April 2019 for our members when we talk about deforestation. Now, the definition of deforestation and how this is going to be implemented at the EU level is still a bit unclear. It will depend on the guidance that will be produced by the EU, that we hope is going to be produced as soon as possible, so that we can ensure that companies can understand how to comply with the requirements of the regulation. What we know today is that there will be a requirement for actually an understanding of the geo-coordinates for all farm locations with the plot of lands. Yeah, this for farms that are going to be below 4 hectares, and the need for having full polygons details for farms that are above 4 hectares. So when we talk about natural rubber, we are looking at an industry that is 85% dependent on smallholders production, where most of smallholders have 1 to 2 hectares of land on average, and we're talking about 6 million smallholders. So these requirements on traceability and on geolocations will really be quite challenging, yeah, for the industry to look into. Yeah, and I think we need to move very fast and ensure that on one end the industry has the best tools and the best intentions to move forward towards complying with the regulation, but on the other end, that the regulators will set up an environment that will be leading to suitable conditions for the businesses to be able to do this within the timelines that are quite stringent. Yeah. So in terms of GPSNR and our engagement, we covered the aspect of the regulation within the discussions of the multi-stakeholder group since the beginning. Yeah, and from the beginning we have taken a position on this, which is that we align with the intent of the regulation. Of course, now the regulation is out, so legality is part of the commitments, of course, of all our companies. So we will need to comply with what the request is, and the companies will need to comply with what the requests are from the regulator. But we really hope that we can look into this in a way that we can promote equity for smallholders and avoid unintended exclusion of smallholders from the value chain. One of the issues that we see coming from the regulation is that there might be a push for companies to divert materials that are more easily traceable. So coming, for example, from large-scale plantation towards the EU, and getting then, therefore, material that is coming from smallholders to potentially go to other markets that do not have the same regulatory requirements. This would be a challenge, and we need to ensure that that's not going to be the case. So we hope that we can look into the guidance that is going to come up for from the EU for somehow a more risk-based approach and a way to look at this on a jurisdictional traceability level, yeah, for a practical and effective approach. Although it seems now that the direction is going towards clearly needing a plot of lands and the coordinates for each of the production points, but we still hope that there's going to be a way to ensure that this is going to be made easier for smallholders. And we do think that capacity building to promote sustainable practices is essential, together with this need for verification and regulation. So here I think that within the pillars of the Green Deal in the EU, traceability is one of the items that is being covered, but in especially the forest partnerships and the way to look at the collaboration with the production governments, there's a lot of opportunity for engagement in a way that we can ensure that smallholders are enabled to comply with the requirements of the regulation. Of course, GPSNR on this doesn't plan to stay idle. We have already started work to enable our members to help our members in compliance with the regulation. And for this, we already completed an assessment with current members on their preparedness and understanding of what is the level of traceability and geolocalization that is currently present in different regions. And we're seeing that we have some regions where this is possibly easier than others when we look at the production. And this is very much depending on how the value chain is designed. So we have certain regions where the value chain is a bit simpler. There are less, let's say, handshakes and passages and intermediaries between the initial products and the processors, and then the processors and the downstream part of the value chain. But we also have parts of the supply chain where we have up to 14 exchanges, and where this will be indeed a challenge to implement. We are also looking at strategizing on what can be done to improve the situation and how we can share costs among members of the tools that will be required to comply with the regulation and to access the data that is necessary for the due diligence process that is required by the regulation, as well as setting up a due diligence process within GPSNR that is indeed aligned with the requirements of the EU. Last but not least, we will look at implementing methods for improving traceability, and we will do that while keeping a holistic approach on sustainability, because we do think that while budgets are always restrained and have a cap, we need to ensure that the regulation does not lead into everything and all the budgets for companies on sustainability going towards verification and due diligence, but the necessary work on capacity building and on support of better practices at the ground level with producers will be continued. So I'll stop there, and I'll thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to respond to any of your questions.